Welcome to Hoardganize with professional organizer Rachel Seavey. Every Sunday at 6 p.m., Rachel shares her expertise and compassionate approach to help you deal with overwhelming clutter. Rachel?
Hey, collectors! Welcome to the Hoardganize podcast. I'm your host, professional organizer Rachel Seavey, and today I am very happy to be speaking with Dr. Regina Lark on the very important topic of ambivalence. Now, a lot of you might not understand what ambivalence means or what it means in relation to your clutter. I went online and dictionary.com's description was uncertainty or fluctuation, especially when caused by an inability to make a choice or by a simultaneous desire to say or do two opposite or conflicting things. In psychology, it's the coexistence within an individual of positive and negative feelings towards the same person, object, or action, simultaneously drawing him or her into opposite directions. So, what does this mean? We'll be going unscripted and in depth for 45 minutes on this exact topic. But first, let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Regina Lark. Dr. Regina Lark is an organizing and productivity specialist based in Los Angeles. In 2008, she founded A Clear Path, followed by Silk Touch Moves, and recently, Speaking of Clutter. Regina and her ninja organizers provide professional, physical, emotional, and psychological support for people who wish to clear clutter and chaos from their lives. Regina is a board-certified professional organizer with additional certifications in ADHD, chronic disorganization, hoarding disorders, and she's a graduate of the Organizer Coach Foundation training program. Regina also serves as a member director of the National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals, NAPO. Dr. Lark is a frequent speaker and educator on topics ranging from women's leadership, emotional labor, time management, productivity, hoarding, and ADHD. Regina has been featured on A&E's hit television show Hoarders. She's been in the Wall Street Journal, the Los Angeles Times, and many other publications. Regina is the author of Psychic Debris, Crowded Closets, the relationship between stuff in your head and what's under your bed. In 2018, she was identified as one of the 20 best professional organizers by expertise.com. In 2016, she was named one of LA's top 10 organizers by CBS Channel 2 and was awarded Most Innovative Organizer by NAPO Los Angeles. Regina earned her PhD in Women's History from the University of Southern California. For fun, she plays golf and tennis and writes goofy songs about clutter. I absolutely love Regina. I love seeing her. She's got the best energy. Tune into our video. You're going to just love her as well. Hi, Regina. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's great to have you here. I'd love to talk to you more about ambivalence. It's something that we deal with a lot in the field. It's something that I feel like my listeners might not even know what it is. So if you could be so kind as to lend a story or a description to help us understand, what ambivalence is and how it holds you back from getting organized.
Hey, Rachel, it's great to be on your show, and I'm very proud of the work that you do on behalf of the communities that we serve. And I mean that from my heart. You are very much a pioneer in bringing bringing this information out to a broader audience. As we know, people who live with the hoarding disorder, and also their friends, you know, well-meaning friends and family just don't have access to this kind of information. So good on you. Ambivalence. What to say about ambivalence? I'm ambivalent about what I'm going to say about ambivalence. When I am working with a client for the first time, and my book of business is we work with people who are chronically disorganized and people who have been diagnosed or probably could be diagnosed with a hoarding disorder. And at the onset, they're calling me in to help them deal with a problem. And the problem is often the case of too much stuff. And they've either gone through therapy, they've either been cited by the city code enforcers, they've either, or they've come to decide that they really want to have their grandkids spend the night. So they come to us for a variety of reasons and a variety of, with a broad relationship to their stuff. So when we come into a job, we talk about the ways in which we're going to sort their items, and sorting can be broken down into maybe 4 or 5 piles. And sometimes, especially with people with hoarding disorder, there's such a creative brain at work that many more sorting discovered. But basically, we have a pile of things that in no way, shape, or form are ever going to leave the site. These are the non-negotiables. These are things that in a million years will never leave the home. There's that pile of get it the hell out. I don't want this. I don't need it. Get it the hell out. It has never served me. I can't think of anybody that I want to give it to. It's just got to go. I've been looking at this damn broken down dresser for 20 years and I'm done with it. There could be a pile of things that they know that they're going to want to donate. There could be a pile of things that these aren't my things, they belong to somebody else and I've been meaning to get them back to the person. Then there's the pile of what I call ambivalence. And the pile of ambivalence is more often than not much bigger than the pile of this is a non-negotiable, it's never going to go away, and the pile of get it the hell out. It's usually bigger than the pile of this doesn't belong to me, I've been meaning to return it to its owner. So the pile of ambivalence is this growing pile during a sorting phase where the person who's making this decision is having mixed feelings or contradictory ideas about the item in terms of need versus use versus want versus value. Need, use, want, and value are mixed up in that pile of ambivalence because the person making these decisions isn't quite clear about its use to them, about its use to somebody else, somebody they know, a friend, its use to somebody shopping Goodwill. They just don't have the clarity about the item. The item can also have attached to it a story about how the item came into their life, and they don't want to negate the kindness of their aunt who knitted this blanket, but the blanket is kind of ratty and it's got holes and it was never a good color for you, but you don't want to dismiss the efforts of the aunt who made it, so you're ambivalent about letting it go. It could be something that in the far distant future you may need someday. You don't know. There's ambivalence about letting it go, because what if you need it someday? What if someday should appear and this thing would become used? So when this type of doubt or uncertainty, indecision, hesitancy, unable to come to any resolve on it, in order to keep the process going, we'll try to continue sorting as well as we can. But at some point, we have to deal with the pile of ambivalence. And so in working with my clients, I hear common stories and relationships to this stuff. When we talk about things that we may need someday, I start a conversation about what does someday have to look like in order for this thing to be used. Let's come up with a scenario. What does someday have to look like? Because when we're holding on to things we may need someday, there are two things at play here. One, we're not identifying someday. We don't know what someday is. We don't know when it is. But we also don't know the following. If we let it go and someday appears and we don't have this thing, we're pretty sure that something not good is going to happen. So we tend to hold on to things because of the fear of that end result. So the end result may mean, I don't have this. Now what? And without even knowing, we will tend to catastrophize the now what. So not only don't we know what someday has to look like, so we can talk about something as innocuous as a crock pot. We haven't used the crock pot for a long time. Hell, we haven't used any of our crock pots for a long time. We haven't used the crock pot for a long time. We have a memory of family dinners where there was a crock pot of chili on the countertop all day, and it was great. Crock pot has a memory. We have a memory about the crock pot. Crock pots are inanimate objects. They can't have a memory. And then we think about, well, I may want to cook a pot of chili someday. So what would someday have to look like? Well, it's going to be cold. It's going to be a rainy day. It's probably going to be winter. So we're decluttering in June and we're looking at the fall or the winter coming up in a few months. And the reality is there have been many falls and winters prior to this that the crock pot wasn't used. So we think about it, and the crock pot's a big piece of kitchen equipment, and it takes up a lot of space, and we're trying to pare down and make room for the things that matter in their life. Crock pot may or may not matter. So we think, okay, so say you let go of the crock pot and winter comes, this is a great day to make a big pot of chili, and you don't have a crock pot. Now what? Well, I shouldn't have thrown the crock pot away, or I can get down on myself for letting it go. I could run over to Goodwill and see if I can find one there. Maybe my next door neighbor has it. And when I think about how to deal with the ambivalence of letting go of that which we may need someday, I challenge my clients to think of things a little differently. See if you can identify someday. What does someday have to look like? And if you can identify someday, hold on to the crock pot. You may have an opportunity. You've got a family reunion coming up, and this will be a great time to make a pot of chili. But if you can't think of any event that this crock pot will be used, and you decide to donate it, and all of a sudden there's an event that a crock pot would have been great, pardon me, think further out about how you can meet the need of a crock pot. Does it have to be a crock pot? Can you make the chili in a pot with a lid? Does it have to be a crock pot? Can you find an alternate recipe to bring to this event? I mean, I think when we're looking at ambivalence, it'll help if we can imagine various scenarios for how to meet the need of having to have chili without necessarily having the chili pot. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. I love it. And it's also easier to just say, well, I'm keeping it, so facing why and looking at the future can be kind of scary for folks, but it's such a great tool that they can use later on with other, crock pot like items where they say, well, hey, let me step into the future and see what does that even look like. And when you think about it, my first thought was cook it in a pot, with a top on it. And I love the idea of the neighbor. I mean, that's more fun. You're getting connection, you're meeting people, then now your neighbor knows that you like to cook from a crock pot. I mean, there's a lot of benefits with that suggestion as well. And
yeah, thanks. You're right. For a lot of folks, it's easier to keep it because then you don't have to make decisions about it. Then you don't have to, it's kind of like the storage unit industry. It's the land of ambivalence, really. It's the land of I used to call it the land of indecision, but it is the land of ambivalence because you've made the decision to hold on to it.
Yeah.
You've made the decision that paying a monthly storage fee will support your decision. You're going to support your decision to hold on to that which you may never use again. You've made you're supporting that decision by paying a monthly fee to support that, instead of perhaps thinking kind of way out. And way out, you may let go of the crock pot today, and in a week, your child's school had said, we need all crock pots. We're going to have a big chili cook-off. It may not be as far out as it feels at the moment. But again, that flexibility, I joke around with clients. I laugh and I said, oh, my needs are always met. Well, how is it that your needs can always be met? Because I'm flexible about the ways they can be met. There's not one way to participate in the chili cook-off. Maybe I'll bring all the bowls and utensils.
Yeah.
It's which ties into another area of why we're ambivalent about letting go of things that we may or may not be using, and that's this. We may have a history with our crock pot. There may have been a time in the past where we won chili cook-offs. So we're tied to the image of the story behind the crock pot. Look at, I even won ribbons.
Yeah.
That's how meaningful this crock pot is. Now, you may be allergic to beans. You may be allergic to chili powder. You may have your relationship with chili may have long passed. It may have sailed away a long time ago. But because of the stories that you have regarding your prior relationship to chili, it may cause you to hold on to the pot, because if you don't have a chili pot, how can anybody take you seriously as someone who used to win blue ribbons in chili? And
Exactly.
I and I'm not saying, I'm not using this example to undermine or make light of why we hold on to things. I have a personal example. You asked me for a case study. I'll give you a personal example about ambivalence. Uh, I have a doctorate in history, and while I was working on my degree, I was also teaching history and women's studies. And so for years, the books that came into my home office were there. They were brought in for me to write my dissertation and teach my classes. And I acquired quite the library. It was 5 floor-to-ceiling bookcases, alphabetized by genre. It was I loved my library, and I loved what I believed my library said about me. I believed that people would walk into my home office and say, a smart person lives here. I thought people would say, wow, what a resource she must be. The books were brought in for me to dissertate and to teach, but there also came a time where I was no longer doing those things. I had finished my degree, and I went from being a professor of history to an academic administrator. And I had these books, and I had to move. And 2 things I knew about me: I don't like being inconvenienced, and I won't pay for offsite storage. So now I have 5 floor-to-ceiling bookcases. They have served their value. They were perfect for what I needed them to be perfect for. No longer needing them. Finish my degree, not teaching. What the hell do I do with all these books? And you want to talk about ambivalent, about letting them go? Oh my gosh, what would people think? How would anybody know I was smart? I mean, this was a crisis in my understanding about myself and my ego and my consciousness and my I mean, I had really built up a story about these books. The books became even more important when I was no longer using them, honestly.
Yeah.
Because what I believed they said about me. And I wasn't going to put them in storage, and I was moving into a 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment, and I had to, I wasn't going to keep them in boxes, which would have been really inconvenient. So I put an ad on Craigslist, and a smart young graduate student from Cal State University, Long Beach, in my fields of study, came by. We filled her car till her tires were flat. I waved this young scholar off with the best library she could have possibly amassed in such a short period of time. I relieved myself of my burden of books. I kept 5 of them. I can show you. I still have some books. And I'm not less smart. Nobody took my degrees away from me. I became good friends with my library card. Now I read my books on a reader on Kindle. So again, I had to really think through to the end. And what if I needed that book on the great Eleanor of Aquitaine, right? She was a 12th century queen of Spain, and she was the queen over a huge part of Western Europe. Maybe that's enough knowledge about Eleanor of Aquitaine, but if I needed more knowledge about Eleanor of Aquitaine, the library or the internet is a great source. And so I had to trust that if I ever needed more information on Eleanor of Aquitaine, I had to trust my ability to find that. So part of me in the relationship with ambivalence is trusting that I'll always be able to meet whatever need I have, regardless of whether I have this thing or not.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I love it. It's really hard. And I still think you're incredibly smart. I know you're very well respected in our field. And None of us have seen your bookshelves, so but it's funny that we attach our significance to things of that sort. I do the same thing. I've
Right.
got books that about hoarding. I mean, I don't ever read them, and
Right.
so if I get rid of them, what does that make me no less, or am I all of a sudden less of an organizer? So it's funny how we tend to
And less of an
attach.
expert. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. And so it's good to know that even you and I go through these kinds of things, I mean, what will people
Right.
think? And the truth is, people come to visit us at our house and they're not necessarily checking out our bookshelves. And so it's kind of,
Right.
yeah, coming to grips with yourself is sometimes it's not, it's hard, and taking the path of least resistance. Yeah, keep it, store it, but to me, going back to the storage unit kind of land of ambivalence, I love that. That is so true. It's usually when people can no longer afford it, that people decide to actually tackle that
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And I'll multiply it out. You've had this storage unit for 11 years at $350 a month. I mean, this is
Yeah.
tens of
10%.
thousands of dollars that you've spent on this stuff. And so that's really the future. What if I need it one day? That's a less of a deal than actually spending tens of thousands of dollars of storage unit and then being, in your 60s and finally going through it. So
Well, and then, so that's the stuff that we think we may need someday. Then there's this stuff that came from somebody else. It's what do our clients call it? What about my memories? And just recently, we were going through an adult child. Her mom had a hoarding disorder. Her mom had passed, and we were holding up perfume bottles, and she goes, "But these are memories of my mom." And I said, "Well, these are actually old perfume bottles. The memory is in your mind and in your heart. This is not a memory. This is a perfume bottle." And when I think about the things that came into our lives from friends and well-meaning family members, whatever it is, I often wonder is if did the giver of this item or did the giver of this item or artifact or the greeting card, did they mean for us to hold on to this for the rest of our natural lives? Greeting cards, gifts, those things, in my estimation, commemorate a moment in time. It's lovely to be thought of. We also have things, we're starting work with a client in a couple of weeks. Her house is filled with the ephemera of deceased family members. So the client says, "I got my mother's things, I got my aunt's things, I still have my brother's things." And what I'm hearing is that I chose to bring these things home. I chose to bring them home because at the time that seemed like the best thing to do. And often there's going to be a family member that's going to be the person that chooses to bring all this in. And so again, it's how do we create a level of trust that whatever you decide to let go from the past, how to trust that your memory about the artifact, there may be another item that's similar, but to trust that we will always have this person in our heart and in our mind. One example I can give you is we had a client who held on to the ticket stub books from Disneyland, the A, B, C, D, E tickets. And there were shoe boxes full of these things. And I said, if all of these shoe boxes of ticket stubs were to leave, so say they are no longer in your life and you're at a cocktail party and you're talking to somebody at the cocktail party and they said, oh, I've been living in Southern California for so long that I remember when we used to have these ticket stub books and the best rides were the e-ticket. You're not going to go home, pull out your ticket stubs and be reminded that that was something you did too. You're going to engage right in the conversation and say, me too. I remember the e-ticket rides. You're not going to need proof that you rode the ride because the memory of that moment is alive and well. Now I'll step to the side and add this. So what if we can't remember? So what if that memory now eludes us? What's the worst that can happen if we can't remember? And for me, the worst that can happen if I can't remember is I'm going to die. That's the worst thing that can happen to me. The chances of me dying because I can't remember a particular event or a person, the chances of me dying are pretty slim. And again, sometimes we have to break it out to such an extreme because we can't think of any other way. We can't think of any other way to deal with not having this thing. If it fits and it's not causing clutter, keep it. Period. If it no longer serves you, body, mind, and spirit, I tell people that everything that comes through my front door has to serve me. It has to be in service to me. It has to serve me aesthetically. I've got to like the way it looks on my wall or on my body. It's got to serve me intellectually, or it's got to serve my tummy. And when I think of things serving me, it has to be in service to me in the moment. It's got to serve me today, where I live today, in terms of my lifestyle. If I no longer golfed, if I no longer played golf, I would probably let go of my golf clubs if I made the decision that I'm no longer going to golf. So whatever I have here in my home, everything here serves me in a manner that I have declared. It's got to serve me aesthetically, intellectually, or my tummy.
I love that. I love that. And you're stopping it at the door. I mean, things that don't serve you, they're not coming in. And I'm the same way. I think a lot of organizers are the same way, where you have, intentions, and either you really need, want, love the thing, or it's not even coming in. It's not going to sit around and you're going to think about it. I don't know about you, but people are constantly offering me things on jobs. And I'm like, I actually enjoy picking out my own stuff, buying it, or, getting it myself. And it's something that I picked out for myself, not just candlesticks that you didn't want any longer, so it
Right.
really good to just have that limit, like, nope, don't want it, don't need it.
Yeah.
And that's a really cool skill. I love all your examples.
And one thing you said, I think that's really significant, and what a lot of folks don't think about, is that clutter actually starts outside your front door. It's the act of bringing it in and putting it down somewhere, not its new home, but somewhere. It's the act of bringing it through the front door. The phone rings, you put it down, and the distractions keep happening. And at the end of the night, you're home and you're like, oh, I got to put that thing away. And then you get a ping and you're looking at your email again. And so being, as much as you're able, more definitive about this thing while you're outside your front door, while you're at the conference. I do a lot of speaking at conferences, and they all have swag bags. And I have to keep myself reeled in, because the conference sponsors are there and they're the ones who filled all the bags. And I want to say, dump your bag before you leave the hotel. Pull out anything you think you may actually use, put it in your suitcase, and leave the rest of the stuff in the room. People say they give you all these things. And I say, you take them home. It's not in the act of giving, it's the act of accepting.
Yeah. And they won't feel bad if you say no. There's plenty of people. I always pass these booths and say no,
Right.
And so free is a big one. Oh, well, it was free.
Yeah.
So what? What is your peace
Right.
of mind worth? A bunch of free stress balls and, no. So really being aware of things that you really don't have to accept, and you're not going to hurt anyone's feelings if you say, no, I don't want this, 5 different pens from Fidelity or whatever it is. So that's a really good point too.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's all about how we want to live. Now, I get that if we have a brain disorder, I get that a lot of our clients who are chronically disorganized have ADHD. They have Pinterest pages of how they want their space to be. So I'm tempering all of my comments with the caveat that this is how my brain is wired. I'm wired to be more linear in my thinking. I'm wired to have decent relationship with time. Time management. I'm wired this way, and I get that most of my clients are not.
Yeah.
And so it takes, for a lot of people, a lot of effort to, it's ambivalence comes when you're at the conference deciding if you want to take something that's offered at the booth. Yeah. You and I may go to a conference and we have that kind of resolve. Well, I already have hand sanitizer. I don't need another one. I already have notepads and pens. I don't need others. We can walk by these exhibits with that sense of resolve. Cognitively, we understand a sale is no bargain if it's going to become clutter. So I temper this with this understanding that not everyone's brain is wired like mine. And I really, really get how challenging it is to start those kinds of readjusting, rethinking, redirecting neurotransmitters to habituate differently, to think differently. When we drill down to decide about that crock pot, that takes time. It takes time to drill down and ask the questions and come to a different answer or come to the same answer, and then be willing to stick a Post-it on the crock pot. If I don't use this by December 31st, 2019, the next decision on the crock pot will be goodwill. But again, all of this takes time, and you said it earlier, and it was spot on. It's easier to make a decision about not making a decision.
Yeah. It's so much easier to keep it. And I find that that's what a lot of my clients do. They're just overwhelmed even with making so many decisions that pretty much anything becomes a keep, if they're tired or hungry or especially distracted. It's very hard. And I love that you um, temper your thoughts, or you don't want to judge people because they don't think like you or I. And a lot of my clients as well have ADHD, and diagnosed or not, or some people are just um, so creative that they're drawn to so many different activities that it almost feels like ADHD, and you're not quite sure. But it's not easy for people to make these decisions. It's so much easier to just say, hey, I'll keep it. But then you look and your house is cluttered. So it's this cycle that can really only be broken by addressing your ambivalence to that pile and saying, hey, I've got to deal with this.
Right.
Yeah. And I think it's good. I know there's some professional organizers that listen to the podcast. I think it's especially important because you and I are just so in touch with how we respond and react to people. But if you're working with someone that has ADHD, possibly getting frustrated, sighing heavily, rolling your eyes, making decisions on their behalf is the worst thing that you could possibly do, because then people just default to keep. Then they've become shameful. They know that you're judging them. And I work with, and I try and share with other organizers, just watch your facial expressions, start to think, hey, this person doesn't think like me. It's not an easy come to, like, no, I don't need this. Like, maybe I should actually sit down and talk to this person in a way that'd be helpful for them, versus what I think they should keep or not. And I think both you and I have been really successful just with being in tune to things like ambivalence, to saying, hey, this person's kind of distracted. Maybe I should use some strategies that would work for them, versus coming in with like a boxed idea of what their house should look like. So
Right, because it's their house. I do want to, you bring up an important point in terms of how other organizers, you want to help other organize. You want to encourage other organizers to not show a physical, bodily, or facial reaction to the stuff. I will say this: I think that they also need to keep it in check with their colleagues. Because if you and your colleague, if two organizers are talking, and one of them was like, oh, her place was disgusting. If you don't understand that if you are going to be that way with a colleague, you're going to slip, and you're going to be that way with your client.
yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind that if you have those types of strong feelings that you're going to relate to a friend, a colleague, a family member, whatever, it will come out when you're with your client. It will. I've seen it happen over and over again. That look of distaste or dissatisfaction, the rolling of the eyeballs. No one will ever hear. I believe that I'm very careful with how I describe things, whether I'm with a client or whether I'm not with a client. Nobody in my world is a hoarder. These are people with hoarding disorder. Nobody in my world lives in disgusting conditions. They live in challenging conditions. And the conditions, the word challenging is when you and I are speaking, or when I'm speaking to the client. I'll say it's really hard in here. I get why you're so upset. This is a very challenging place to live, but I won't use filthy and disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I see is this is a really challenging place.
And it's so true. I mean, even you and I have professionally shared clients, and it's, it's not like, oh, it's filthy, disgusting, and there's, rats. And it's more like this person is a certain level and this is what they want. It doesn't come from a place of judgment. And I always joke, I don't know if it's, well, you're in LA, so you get it. But I even say to like some of my colleagues that, I get Botox just, so that I have no expression, but that's just kind of a joke. It's really important to also not come in and over exaggerate. The person already is embarrassed to let you in, and you come, oh, it's lovely, oh, it's not that bad, oh, it's,
Right.
you really have to come in from just a non-judgmental place. It's not about whether you like their decor or they have too many cat things in your opinion. It's nothing about us. It's about them. It's about serving them. And I've had people say, wow, the place still looks like crap and we're done with the job. I mean, this is, and I say, but look how happy she is. She knows what she has now. Yeah, maybe it's boxed and labeled, but it's not about what the house looks like afterwards to me at all. I don't care. I can sleep well at night if my clients are happy, if they're content, if they've made progress. Progress to me is wonderful. And as long as they're happy, then I can sleep at night. It doesn't bother me. I'm not looking to take before and afters for Pinterest or anything like that. Right. So just being aware as an organizer that not everyone is looking for perfection, that some people just are looking for a starting point. Like, where do I begin? I hear that all the time. Like, I don't even know where to start. They don't want, everything perfect. A lot of my clients aren't looking for perfection. So hopefully we're able to share just what ambivalence is to some of our colleagues that are listening, and maybe they can help people, step into the future and see if they will really need that item. I like that strategy. Because it's kind of fun. It's a fun strategy. Like what, and I love it, throw out the idea. Like, what if it's a crock pot competition next week at your kid's school? I mean, that's just hilarious.
Bring the cheese.
To you all morning. It's so funny.
All right, you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This is going to be a great show. It's by far the longest one, but the most full of so much information. I love it. And how do people get in touch with you? You're at aclearpath.net?
Yes. And my email is regina@aclearpath.net. And just Google A Clear Path of Regina Lark. We're located in Southern California, and we cover all of Los Angeles and Orange counties.
Wonderful. Anyone that needs help in those areas, I highly, highly recommend Regina and her team.
You're awesome, Rachel. So good to see you.
Welcome back, collectors. There you have it. 45 minutes of non-scripted hoarding expert advice. And if you're a professional organizer listening to this, you hopefully have several take homes as well. I mean, there's definitely a reason why Regina and I have been so successful in this business. So I hope you're taking notes. So ambivalence, collectors, is it holding you back? What's the crock pot in your life that you need to get rid of? It's time to make a decision. Right now, you are in a rut. You know you're not happy, but you're not unhappy enough to do anything about it. It's time to decide to let go of your clutter, and it's time to decide that the clutter itself is causing you more pain than your fear of getting organized. Put your worries, your fears, your what ifs to the side and start acting on your clutter now. I know you've spent a lot of time reading about getting organized, listening, watching about getting organized, but it's really now time to act on it. I know it's going to be scary, but what's worse? Trying to help yourself or drowning in clutter and drowning in shame and not being able to have people over to your home? If you are watching this podcast on YouTube, you can see Regina and I in person. Hit that thumbs up button, click the notification bell, make sure you're subscribed, and let us know what you think of the podcast. We'd love to hear about your thoughts on ambivalence. You can also follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook under Collector Care for more free organizing tips. Until next time, collectors, and remember, happiness is a place between too little and too much.
Now, a short ad break from Clarity Coaching.
Do you feel overwhelmed with clutter? Are you having trouble finding a place to start? Sometimes it's hard to ask for help, especially with all of the judgment and shame out there. What you need is an experienced, non-judgmental guide to help you navigate through your clutter chaos. I'm a guiding force that's going to help you empower yourself so you can live a happier, healthier, more organized life. I will take the time and I'm going to hold the space for you to understand your world, your dreams, your relationships, and your clutter. I do this with no judgment and no other agenda, but to help you achieve what you want most in life. And this, my dear collectors, is something that most people have never experienced. To experience a life that you truly desire, schedule your free Clarity coaching session today by emailing me at rachel@collectorcare.com. That's rachel@collectorcare.com. Or call me directly. I'm at 925-548-7750. That's in America, so that's area code 1-925-548-7750. Clarity consultations are complimentary for individuals seeking my coaching services, and they're very useful to make sure that we're the right fit for each other. Stop living in chaos and start living the organized life you desire.
This has been Hoardganize with Rachel Seavey. New episodes are available every Sunday at 6 p.m. and also on the Collector Care YouTube channel. Download Rachel's Affirmations for Collectors on iTunes or Amazon.com, or sign up for Rachel's blog at collectorcare.com and receive 7 tips for clutter-free living. Thanks for listening.